This is the worst podcast in the history of podcasts. Nobody listens. The ratings are a disaster. Total amateurs running it. Very unfair to me. And frankly, people are saying it should be taken off the air immediately.
Hello and welcome to a walking episode of That's Not the Message. My name is Sebastian Rodriguez,
And I'm Daniela, Vancic.
and we are here in beautiful Budapest just a few hours before Europe's most watched election starts.
Yes, exactly. We're right across the street from the parliament where they might see regime change for the first time in over 16 years. And this episode is going to be a little bit different because we're doing a walk and talk episode. So we're going to take you along with us, and you'll also get the nice sights of Budapest while we tell you
Exactly.
what we've experienced
For example,
so far these days.
you can see here the chain bridge, and right, we're going to be working towards the beautiful parliament. So really excited.
So we're here as okay. No, I'm going to say that. Okay. I'm here as an international election observer with Democracy International, and you couldn't resist missing Europe's most watched election of the year. I've actually convinced quite a few people to join me on this trip last minute who weren't going to plan to come. So we'll be doing also the typical like the poll watching, things like that tomorrow. We're already accredited, but we've spent the last few days here having incredible meetings with people on the ground, democracy experts, those working on transparency, anti-corruption, rule of law, campaigners, the journalists. So we're really getting an idea for the landscape on the ground, and we'll tell you what we learned. What are we calling this episode?
So the name of this episode, we thought the perfect one was the playbook to defeat an authoritarian, because that's what we are witnessing here these days. We have broken down into three very simple categories that we hope everyone else out there can implement in their campaigns. And let's delve into them. The three categories are the message, the tactics, and the candidate.
Yeah.
Let's start with the message. What do you think, Daniela, has been the key message that has driven the opposition to the place that they are today? And perhaps at this point, and very briefly, just to explain that, of course, we are in Hungary, where Orbán, this incredibly bad authoritarian, has been in power for 16 years, incredibly corrupt. The economy is stagnated, and really people are feeling the pain now in their pockets. And for the first time in many years, there is a potential candidate in the opposition who maybe even get a mandate, what they call a constitutional, a constitutional majority to roll back some of the most authoritarian measures implemented in the country over the last few decades. So, in that context, we will talk about the candidate later, but let's go and talk about the first. What was the message that this opposition was carrying everywhere in Hungary?
Yeah, this has been really clear to me because sometimes campaigns come about and it wasn't really clear what did you really stand for, and this has been so clear from the forefront. And the message is that corruption will cost you. This candidate, Peter Magyar, that we'll talk about more in just a minute, has been running on a really clear transparency, anti-corruption campaign. I mean, his whole rise to power is also because of the corruption scandals, and this is really coming to the forefront. He has had he has an incredible message, discipline, on always bringing it back to domestic issues, making it really tangible. Let's dive into that a little bit because, of course, even when you say things like, of course, it wants to restore democratic reforms in Hungary, but that is, as we've said in previous episodes, defend democracy is not the message alone. It doesn't mean that you're not going to defend democracy. It's just you don't lead with that. And instead, we're leading with something anti-corruption because it's a lot more visible in a place like Budapest in Hungary, where it's so opaque and corruption is run so amok, and we've heard like legalized money laundering, and people have started to feel the weight of that, especially the last couple of years when there's been such a rise of inflation and the wealth gap. Orbán and his cronies and then the average Hungarian is too big to ignore.
Yeah. And I would say the message was corruption has a cost, but it also means fewer hospitals, fewer roads. Like it does have an impact to you and your community, and linking this to the solution. So we have a way out of this situation that you can trust. We have a plan to recover that money. That's a big part in the conversation, and we have a way to unlock so much needed EU funds that are right now frozen in Brussels.
Yeah, exactly. I think what they're running with this corruption and that how it hurts your pocketbook, because it's not just corruption has become so normalized somehow in the Hungarian culture, but they're pushing this that corruption is hurting your pocketbook because of corruption. The cost of corruption, so unchecked, like it has gotten here, is that there's crumbling infrastructure, crumbling hospitals, that the public services are falling. Let's see if we decide to keep that one in. Maybe
We're back.
Orban's checking us.
Yeah, Orban doesn't want us to film this podcast. So
Yeah.
here we go. Back.
But that there has been crumbling public services, and that's exactly the cost of corruption. Is that when you have resources and wealth going into the pockets of oligarchs and cronies, it doesn't. There's no way then it can reach the majority of the people and the services that they need and they require. Education, healthcare. Healthcare is a big one in this election, is what we've heard. But healthcare always in the framing of the reason we have a healthcare problem is because we have a corruption problem. So it's always tied to that. So there has been incredible message discipline about that we need to tackle corruption to be able to tackle everything else.
And I would say about the message discipline that there have been innumerable times where the situation, because of the scandal or because there was an attempt by Orban and his cronies to frame the candidate as a pro-Ukrainian traitor, you name it. He stayed. He didn't, or he followed what every politician, every candidate should follow, which is stay on message. Don't repeat the frame of your adversary. If you adopt the frame of your adversary, then that's it. You've already lost, because the adversary knows that in that frame they are stronger. And the moment you are repeating those frames, then you're setting yourself up for failure. So he was like incredibly disciplined, and we can see now here. I'm gonna take you with us and see, for example, one of the posters that you see everywhere. Show you what we're talking about. One of the poster campaigns that we see everywhere is the one right behind me, where you can see the face of Zelensky and the face of Peter McGill. And basically it says, they are dangerous, we need to stop them. And despite and those posters, by the way, they are everywhere in the countryside. It's huge money that has gone behind this campaign, and still the candidate has remained very, very disciplined. And well, let's see. I think that's it's going to be one of the key strengths from the candidate. Let's continue.
Yeah, I think we were really hit in the face with these posters, especially driving from the airport, because that area, the drive from the airport to the city is also more poverty stricken area. And there, I mean, it is just like kilometers long of these posters. And I mean, the way you see Zelensky in every poster, you would think he's on the ballot. But that's exactly what Orban is trying to frame it as. But this message discipline, I mean, I really love this. I think this is something that we need to learn. This is the rule in the playbook. It's something that we're also learning in the U.S. Zoran Mamdani campaign is famous for its message discipline. Always any distraction that was thrown at him, and there were plenty, and he always came back to cost of living.
Yeah.
That was his thing. And these are two different candidates, all totally different ideologies, and they definitely have that in common. I think that's something that for this coming year. Midterms coming up next year. 2027 is going to be the political moment for Europe. Many national elections there, and the candidates, the pro Democrats, are going to have to keep on message discipline that is working really well here.
Cost of living, bread and butter issues. Those are the messages you need to lead with. And in the past in Hungary, they've had opposition parties and candidates who perhaps focus too much on the democracy aspect. Democracy needs defending, and it's true, it does need defending, but you can also campaign and you can also bring democracy to something very tangible when you say democracy is about me affording affording eggs, affording milk, and my neighbor doing the same, and making sure that if someone is putting my money into, or everyone's money into, their own pockets, that there are going to be repercussions and there's going to be accountability. So I think he really, and with that probably we've covered what we wanted to say in this section, but that is to me one of the most critical things that I have seen in this campaign.
Corruption's going to cost you.
Yeah.
Okay. Second section. What's in the playbook? Three chapters. Chapter 2. Campaign tactics.
Campaign tactics.
Lead us
Very
in.
innovative, right?
Yeah.
I have to say that on this one, it's been almost the only alternative for the party and the candidate to follow this innovative road, because they had no access to public funds since the party didn't have representation in parliament. And even if they had that representation, the space in the state media and in the private media that is so close to Orbán would have been almost nothing. So what did he do instead?
Yeah, well, I mean, as we said, the campaign landscape is impossible. So you're going to have to innovate. He has ran a really grassroots, volunteer-based campaign. I was amazed to find out that he has recruited 50,000 volunteers. That's a lot for a country like Hungary, and also that doesn't have that kind of democratic participation culture that to recruit that many volunteers. And they're headed mostly to, they're very strategically placed mostly in the countryside to knock on doors and canvass for the TISA party. But they've also managed to crowdfund. They've had to do fundraising because, of course, they have no access to state funds. They have also managed to create an app, a TISA app. That we had a look at, and they have gamification techniques. You can gather points, right? If you commit to voting, for example, on the Sunday, like you sign, a commitment that you send this app to 3 friends, you get extra points. Another thing is the TISA app. They have an app which uses gamification. You gather different points, you collect points by doing things like signing a commitment to vote on Sunday, by sending the app, inviting 3 friends. Also different types of games. Of course, if you volunteer to campaign, then you also get points that way. So it's really, really impressive. And I think, like, in comparison to Orbán, who's a really, kind of doing more old-fashioned, outdated style of campaign, he's not exactly known to be the most innovative, also because he hasn't had to be until so far. He hasn't had an opponent like this. That part, I think that he has managed to employ such really grassroots approach to campaigning, also because he was in the impossible situation. He was kind of forced to do it, but they managed to employ this really well.
I would also say about the campaign tactics is that the candidate, which is the third point that we're going to discuss, but the candidate was really self-confident and innovative in the way that he also probably ignored the typical campaign consultant or political consultant type of advice. When, for example, there was a big debate happening right here in the Hungarian parliament about civil society and about media freedom, and he instead decided to start a walking tour, pretty much similar to what we are doing now, but to Transylvania, from Budapest to Transylvania, and to broadcast the whole thing. Him walking in the beautiful Hungarian countryside, meeting people. People would come to him to greet him, and more people turn out to see this guy walking in the countryside than to an existential and really important policy debate in Parliament. And I think he got the instinct right, because he showed people that he was different, and that the tactics that he was using were different. He was more approachable. He wants to reach out to the countryside, and definitely I think that put him in the minds of people who perhaps were more hesitant, to voting for this Budapest type of guy.
Brussels type of guy.
Yeah, and Brussels type of guy.
Yeah, he really took you along for the campaign. And again, to draw the parallel, I mean, this is my favorite campaign of the past year, and what we've learned, the Zoran Mamdani approach has also done this. They've walked the whole Manhattan and taken people along for the ride and knocked doors along the way. So I think this kind of like radical transparency in the campaigning, like blogger style, taking you along with me, as we're also entering like the content creator economy. I think like this is going to be the future of a successful campaign. So I really like how he's managed to do that. So that's chapter 2 of our playbook.
Let's go.
Now we got the sun facing us. Okay, now we got the good lighting, and I'm big on good lighting. So, okay, chapter 3 of the playbook, the candidate.
Yeah, we've been talking about him throughout this episode, and we wanted to leave it to the end because the candidate is the most important thing in an election campaign. You need to elect someone to implement all these promises. So what about the candidate? Tell me, what have we learned about the candidate?
Well, he's got an interesting background story, because he's like an insider-outsider type of situation. He was in the Fidesz party, in Orbán's party, until only 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So he has, but his whole story is that he's come forward with this corruption case, which was also involving his ex-wife, by the way, so messy divorce there. But he has kind of come out with this corruption cases, brought that to the surface, and that's of course why that's the crux of his campaign, is this anti-corruption, transparency, accountability kind of message. But because of that, because he's an insider-outsider, he has credibility. I think that is what sets him apart from all the other, Democrats who have tried to take back Orbán's rule, and this is what they were missing. Is I think he's somebody who's been in the system and says, I've been there, I've seen it. There are issues, there are problems, and that is a sense of credibility that is needed, I think, in the Hungarian political and democratic landscape, that he's been able to get those undecided voters, or those people who are also simply fed up with Orbán rule all these years.
Mm-hmm. I would also say that on paper he would have been a terrible candidate. Someone from the elite, the Budapest elite, highly educated, international education, you name it. Like he is the prototype.
He's in Brussels.
Yeah, he's in Brussels, but he has managed to tell a story about his moral compass and why he's doing what he's doing, and also he represents. I think that's another takeaway. To beat an authoritarian in countries like Serbia or in many other countries outside of Europe, is the candidate has to represent not the ideological opposition to the authoritarian, but needs to represent the average voter in the country. And if the country leans to the right or slightly to the right, then I think the candidate has to reflect that, because people will want to have a safe choice, right? They don't want to go from a conservative authoritarian government all the way to, say, a socialist, a democratic one. And I think that
maybe not overnight.
Not overnight, exactly.
Yeah, I think this is like the soft landing that is also probably needed, to be able to convince those. You're going to need, at the end of the game, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, and you're going to need to get also those fed up and those frustrated Orbán supporters onto your team. And the way to do that is with somebody who is also said, I've seen, I get you, and I see what the issues are, and we're going to bring that out to the front. I like that he's not, he's not like an ideologue. Like, I think that the topic that he's leading with, which is anti-corruption, is not a left-right issue. It's a top-bottom issue, and
it's an corrupt versus honest, hardworking people.
Yeah, exactly. People have seen over the years how Orbán and his friends have lined their pockets. We can talk in a second about these political documentaries that have also really brought that to the surface. But he is, he's really managed to push this to the front.
All right. What else can we say about the candidate? That he is not to be found in the capital, in Budapest. If you wanna meet him, he is physically in the countryside. He is gathering crowds that are unseen in recent Hungarian democratic history. And he so far has been able to be a really good communicator. He will have challenges like anyone else once he gets elected, is to see if he can hold this broad coalition together. I mean, we just stopped and we had a conversation with two very friendly Hungarian activists for TISA, and we asked whether it was the first time that they were participating in politics. They said yes. What else did they?
They were in their 40s, and they said it's the first time that they've been involved in politics like this. They were working at an info stand, handing out flyers to people, talking to voters ahead of tomorrow. So yeah, it has really managed. Like, again, it comes down to like the kind of grassroots campaign tactics that he has employed. And when we also asked them what has motivated you to join this campaign, and they said, the time for change is now, and we're fed up. Like, there was a clear frustration in their voice, but at the same time, it's like there is a view to hope out there.
So to wrap up, good message. Focus on bread and butter issues. Focus on domestic, also domestic issues, but also domestic values like the patriotism. And I mean, the party is called respect and freedom. Those are values that are really important at national level, and that we shouldn't let the far right take over those values.
And how he's been disrespectful. Then it's showing the contrast that Orbán has been disrespectful to the constitution, to the people that he claims to serve.
Exactly. Good campaign tactics like forget about traditional media, hit the road, knock on doors, meet the people where they are outside of the capital,
and take people along with you. Be transparent about it. I think that has also helped him.
And of course, the story of the candidate. It's really important how to be able to transition from an insider to a credible outsider, bring a coalition of people and parties and traditions together under one slogan, and be able to deliver a campaign that has been nearly perfect in terms of the discipline, in terms of the tactics. So let's see what happens tomorrow. We still don't know the results at the moment that we are recording this episode, and we will take you with us as well. But let's see. We are like really fortunate to be spending this historical time here in Budapest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the results. We'll be actually right here across the square as the results come in. So yeah, we'll get some content there too.
Absolutely. Well, continue following us on our socials. Tell us what you would like to learn more about in the next few days, and we're gonna be here in Budapest. And hopefully on Monday we wake up with more hope and with the one less authoritarian in Europe.
Cross your fingers. Bye.
Bye.
This is the worst podcast in the history of podcasts. Nobody listens. The ratings are a disaster. Total amateurs running it. Very unfair to me. And frankly, people are saying it should be taken off the air immediately.